Our Law and Justice segment tonight. Could NFL players kneeling during the national anthem cost police officers their lives? Does the immense media attention given to the national anthem protests foment anti-police sentiment that is leading to an unprecedented number of ambush-style attacks against police officers? Our next guest says the problem with these protests goes a lot deeper than disrespectful, unpatriotic behavior. With me now, contributor to the Conservative Review, Dr. Tom Borelli. Dr. Borelli, thanks for being on the show.
Hey Liz, great to be back.
All right, Dr. Borelli, this is quite a controversial statement to make that the NFL players kneeling for the national anthem could cost police officers their lives. How so, sir?
Well, as we remember, Colin Kaepernick, the unsigned football player, started the whole protest of kneeling during the national anthem, and he was really motivated by Black Lives Matter themes. The themes that police officers are targeting Black Americans and shooting them, and that the United States is really fundamentally racist. Both are not true. And the NFL failed to really correct the record with the data, and they're really, by allowing the league to be hijacked by this social justice movement, they're really misleading Americans. And it's really important to understand that in 2016, according to FBI data, 17 police officers died from ambushes, and 5 of those were from Dallas, Texas, when the individual who shot those police officers in Dallas said he was motivated by Black Lives Matter. So again, not correcting the record about what the Black Lives Matter is about is really misleading Americans, driving some people over the edge, and the NFL is failing to correct the record.
Right, so let's contrast these, I guess, the rhetoric from Black Lives Matter versus the actual truth here. And the rhetoric, and I want to use your example, and that's Colin Kaepernick. He's the one who started all this in 2015. His original statement was, and I quote here, "There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder." Essentially what he's saying is cops are murderers, they're getting away with it, and Black people are dying because of that. That's a pretty powerful thing to say. That's a pretty, that will instill a pretty powerful fear into a large percentage of our country to say that. So that's the rhetoric from the Black Lives Matter that you're talking about. If we contrast that with the actual data here, talk to me about the statistics. How likely is a police officer to shoot an unarmed Black man versus a police officer to be shot?
Yes, Heather McDonald from Manhattan Institute did some really good research, and it turns out that a police officer is 18 times more likely to be shot by a Black man than an unarmed Black man being shot by a police officer. So again, the data out there really shows that police officers are at risk. But we're missing this moment, and this is where the NFL is failing. Look, if they want to destroy their brand by alienating their customers, the fans, look, that's their right. It's their business. But they really should stop with propaganda. They need to be the adults in the room to educate players on the real causes of crime and try to get Black community educated, try to get job creation. That would be a way to really improve the lives of all Americans, but especially Black Americans. But the NFL is failing their fans, and now they're failing the nation.
Right, and listen, they're a private business. They can decide whether their employees, meaning the players, can kneel for the national anthem or whether they should stand up. They're allowed to regulate their employee behavior as a private business. No one's stopping these players from exercising their First Amendment outside of their workplace. Just like I couldn't act inappropriately at my workplace and expect to just say, oh, it's my First Amendment right to be rude, to be disrespectful, to yell at my boss, what have you. The NFL has a right to do that, but they also have a responsibility not to legitimize a false narrative. And I hesitate to blame rhetoric from any side for someone else's violence. Each individual is responsible for their own actions. But I do think you're right in the sense that they're neglecting their responsibility. They're neglecting this opportunity to say, listen, we hear what you're saying. We hear your concerns. This is the rhetoric that you've heard, and this is why it's incorrect. And I guess I don't quite understand why they're not doing that.
Yeah, I guess because the NFL commissioner, Roger Goodell, he's just afraid. I mean, again, they should be the adults in the room to explain the real data out there, because you can't allow the airways to be, led really misleading people, because there are people who are out there, unfortunately, mentally unstable, and they can easily go over the edge and just feels into this emotion. And if it's not right, it's really going to have adverse consequences, far more than just the NFL plummeting ratings and falling approval ratings.
Right, because and that's where the so-called compromise, and I put compromise in quotes because I don't really think Roger Goodell is compromising here. I think he's just too wishy-washy to take a stand one way or the other. But that's where it makes that sort of compromise a little more dangerous and a little less just an unwillingness to get involved in a political dialogue. Because in truth here, one side of this rhetoric is true and one side of it is not true, and he's not differentiating truth from untruth just based off of his fear of being politically incorrect.
No, you're absolutely right. And there's news reports that next week Colin Kaepernick is going to be meeting with NFL owners and Goodell and other players. So again, that's reinforcing that Colin Kaepernick is right. And remember, he wore those socks where he had images of pigs as police on his socks. And, you know, he had the Castro T-shirts as well. So again, someone really needs to explain the truth, to these individuals.
Right. And the truth is, like you said, that in 2015, 17 law enforcement officers were killed in the line of duty, not during altercations, but ambush style, meaning they were targeted not in the heat of the moment, but they were targeted specifically for execution because they're police officers. 5 of those officers were the officers who were murdered in Dallas by Micah Johnson. Micah Johnson, of course, said he was sympathetic to the Black Lives Matter movement's rhetoric. The same rhetoric peddled by Colin Kaepernick. The correlation is very interesting. Dr. Borelli, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.